Yo, what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about 5 reasons why your jumper might be broken. All right, let's get right into it. The first problem with your jumper is that your hand placement on the ball is incorrect. First, I'm going to show you a couple quick pictures of some of the best shooters in the world and check out where their hands are on the ball. So what you typically learn when you're younger is that you have to put your hand directly behind the ball and your other hand directly on the side of the ball, leaving your hands pretty close to each other and pretty uncomfortable. And if we quickly flash back to some of those pictures, you'll see that their shooting hand is actually a little bit off to the side, pointing diagonal, with their guide hand a little bit more towards the top of the basketball. So what we want to do, instead of putting that hand directly behind the ball, we're going to put it a little bit more to the side with our fingers pointing more diagonal across the ball. And then we're going to move that guide hand a little bit more to the top. This is going to give you way more control. Now, you guys might be thinking, if my shooting hand is more pointed toward the side with my guide hand more on the top, isn't that going to mess up my release? No, because watch, when I get up into my shot, eventually my elbows start to square up, and my hand actually gets underneath and behind that ball, and then my guide hand will just simply unlatch as I follow through. Now again, the problem with having your hand directly behind the ball with your guide hand directly on the side is that you don't have much control, and when I see players do this, they end up thumbing a lot and using their guide hand because their guide hand is so close to their shooting hand that they end up doing a two-handed shot. Mistake number 2 is your elbow angles. Some of you guys have your elbows too tight, some of you have them too wide. Now again, going back to some of the old school ways of teaching this, what they'll tell you is that you have to have your elbow in super tight so you can get your hand behind the ball. But again, let's look at some pictures of the best shooters in the world and look at the angles of their elbows. So as you can see in those pictures, their elbows are actually a little bit bowed out away from their ribs. Now their elbows aren't pointed straight out like a chicken wing, but they're not super tight either. Now what I've seen happen with players with their elbows a little too tight is that if I move my elbow, you can see that my wrist starts to turn too. If my elbow is super tight, you can see my wrist is actually going to be pointed the opposite way, and I start to follow through almost sideways. Same thing if my elbow's out. If I start to go up like this, I'm gonna be shooting sideways and more out. So what we wanna find is that perfect angle, somewhere that's not too far away, but not too tight, somewhere right in the middle. And when you find it, what you'll realize is, even if it is pointing a little bit out, by the time you get up into your shot, your elbow starts to square up and your wrist starts to get underneath the ball and you can follow through straight. And mistake number 3, you have a bad shot path. And what I mean by that is, when your ball comes up from your dip to your set point, we want to try to make that as straight and as efficient as possible. Now, I'm sure all of you have seen the old Lonzo Ball shooting form. His shot path was actually going across his body and then would square up to that set point. Now, will you make some shots like that? Sure, but it's not simple enough to be repeatable, so you're not going to be a super efficient shooter. And mistake number 4 is your release. Now, we all understand that some players end up doing a thumb flick and some just shoot with their one shooting hand. So it's not all bad if you have a thumb flick, but if you feel like that thumb flick is actually rotating the ball and turning it sideways, that's when you might have some issues. Ideally, what we want is a perfect rotation on the ball every time we shoot, whether we thumb flick or if we don't. Looking at your shooting hand, what we want is this basketball to be released with these 3 fingers: your pointer, your middle, and your ring finger. What we're trying to avoid is having that ball start to roll off the end or the pinky. So going back to that thumb flick, if that thumb flick is ending up pushing the ball out of your shooting hand more towards your pinky, you might want to get rid of it. And actually, a good tip that I stole from Kobe Bryant is having your pointer finger and your middle finger and your thumb touch together on the release. So every time you shoot, those fingers will actually connect. And the 5th mistake that might be messing up your shot is your shot sequencing or your shot timing. And what I mean by that is, we don't want to be shooting on the way down. And here's where the problem really occurs. What you want is the ball to move up your body and then start to release and jump into your shot. But players that shoot on the way down actually move their body first, where they become fully extended. Then the ball comes up, and by the time they're ready to shoot, their body's already coming down, and then they're gonna be shooting on the way down. So just remember this rule: ball before body. And there you have it. Those are 5 of the most frequent problems I see in player shot. If you're trying to figure out how to fix it, click this video and I got 5 drills that are gonna help you fix your shot.